Hi, I'm Russell Ward, and welcome to part 2 of my series, How to Sell Pickleball Paddles. In my last video, I talked about how to find a pickleball paddle manufacturer to represent. In this video, I'll get into the details of selling pickleball paddles. So your first area is to make sure that you're acquainted with the various paddles that you represent and their distinctive features. Once you have that, go out to the courts and start to mingle with the players. And the most effective way to sell paddles is to get a paddle in a player's hand. So the question is, how do you do this? So when I'm on the courts participating with the other players, I watch for the following. I watch for a player that's missing the same shot over and over again, or that person is hitting the ball too long or too short consistently. I find that most players have good mechanics. They are just simply not using the right paddle that matches their natural swing speed or style of play. Or they have a paddle that's reached its lifespan. So I only have 2 questions that I'll ask a typical player. And again, all I want to do is get a paddle in their hands. The first question is, how long have you had your paddle? And if they say to me that they've had their paddle for over a year, I politely ask them if I could borrow their paddle. And what I do is, I want to test it. And by testing it, you'll notice when I hit the middle of the paddle, see how it jumps up really nicely with hardly any swing? But look when I get to the edge of the paddle, okay? It will hardly bounce off the paddle. That means that the edge of the paddle is starting to disintegrate, that the polymer paddle, and that is what happens after a course of 12 to 18 months, depending on how long they play, that this area starts to disintegrate just a little bit, slowly. So the core of the paddle's fine, but the edge of the paddle, where oftentimes we hit off some of our shots, is going to fall short and is not going to be as effective. So the other question is, did you notice that you're not making a certain shot consistently? For instance, that every time they attempt a drop shot, it just kind of dumps into the net. That means they just need a paddle again that would maybe have a little bit more pop or force to it. So after I've asked one of those 2 questions, I will say to them, would you like to try a different paddle? No obligation, it's free. So now they have the paddle in hand. It's almost sold. About 70 to 80% of the time, it's sold as soon as it's in their hand. So your question to answer is, which paddle do you start a player with? So where I've differentiated is I call it the long swing or the short swing. So someone that has a long swing, perhaps from like a tennis or a badminton or racquetball background, they're used to having this long, what I call a long swing. So of course the paddle is going to have, when it connects with the ball, there's going to be a lot of force coming off. So you don't want a paddle with a lot of spring to it or a lot of pop to it. So that's what I would recommend for the person who's a long swinger. Now someone who's more of a short swinger, okay, which is men and women, in both these cases it's men and women, when they have a shorter swing, this one has a lot more pop. And they both have exceptional control as well. So it just depends on where the player's swing speed is. So if they have a short swing speed, this is the one that I will hand them. All right? So then what you do is make sure that they use a paddle in game conditions so they can experience all the variety of shots, from hitting a lob to hitting the serve to hitting a ground stroke to hitting a dink, etc., so that they can make a comparison with their current paddle. And so what I find in my line, over 90% of the players will prefer one of these 2 paddles, 90%. In the past, I've had up to 3 to 5 different paddles that I've had to keep handing back and forth to the player. So it's very remarkable that Temper has been able to find a paddle that the recreational player will absolutely enjoy. I've had so many people with smiles on their face after they've got a new paddle, and they're thank me every time they see me because they're enjoying their new paddle. So the other thing is, to make the sale, you must have paddles in your car ready, new paddles ready to go for sale. And so because you find if you leave and you come back the next session, they may not be there, or now they're not interested. And so it's something that you need to take advantage of the moment. All right, so thank you so much for watching. This is part 2 of my series on how to sell pickleball paddles, talking about some of the details of selling pickleball paddles. In my next video, I'll talk about key questions that are asked to me as a dealer to help you answer virtually any question that a player might have about pickleball paddles. Thanks so much for watching. And if you are enjoying these videos, please hit the like button.